and she puts her patients under hypnotherapy, and then they claim what happens when they got abducted, and it's fucking terrifying. Okay, they show like the people like floating, levitating in their bed, and it's terrifying. Hello, spooky friends. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah. I'm the Metaphysical Witch, and today we will be discussing Dolores Cannon. Now, if you are very involved in the spiritual community, then you most likely have heard of her. She's very popular, very well known, and very respected. She was an American hypnotherapist, a past life regressionist, and she's also an author and a publisher. She has a lot of books out there. I'm actually reading one now. I'm not reading it, but it's an audiobook, so I'm listening to it, but it is called Between Death and Life, and it's basically her interviewing one of her clients in a regression session. Now, I wanted to talk about her because not only do I find her fascinating, but I've also been listening to a lot of audiobooks that have to do with past life regressions and also discussing what happens when we die in our human form. And these audiobooks are interesting to me. Like, I find them interesting, but also they've sort of helped me process the grief of my best friend that I lost earlier in the year in February. Because when you're grieving and someone you love dies, you're just kind of left with like, well, where did they go? What happened to them? You know what I mean? So that's sort of helped me process a little bit when it comes to death and what these doctors and hypnotherapists find with their clients while they are under hypnotherapy. I also find it more believable because as I'm listening to these, the different doctors and different hypnotherapists, their clients, which are different clients obviously, have similar reports, and I'm like, well, maybe there's something there. You know what I mean? So, yeah. But like I said, Dolores was one of these hypnotherapists. Dolores Cannon was born Dolores Eileen Taylor. She was born in St. Louis, Missouri on April 15th, 1931, making her an Aries. She's representing for the fire signs, okay? Because fire signs don't get enough credit when it comes to them being spiritual or psychic or intuitive, but they really are. And Dolores Cannon is an Aries. So Dolores's mom, her name was Mary Elizabeth, and her dad's name was Arthur Taylor. She grew up in a very conventional household, and despite that, she was always very open-minded and always wanting to learn about life and spiritual concepts. So she would read a bunch of books on spirituality, metaphysical literature, things like that, which I can relate to because I'm very open-minded too, and I love reading spiritual and metaphysical books. It just kind of like, it gives you that taste for what else is out there. So before Dolores ever got into hypnotherapy, she actually wanted to be an opera singer, which is super cute. And she has videos, I believe you can find videos online of her singing opera. Dolores Cannon completed her education in 1947 when she was only 16 years old. And I believe that is the only education she received up until she was 16. In 1951, she married her husband, Johnny Cannon. He was from Kansas City, Missouri. He was also in the U.S. Navy. They had children. They had a son named Tom and daughters Gloria, Julia, and Nancy. And over 21 years, the family frequently moved because of Dolores Cannon's husband's naval assignments. So if you have ever been in the military or you know a military family, they tend to move a lot because they get stationed all over. And apparently they also got stationed at international locations as well. So not just in the US. He served in the Korean War and Vietnam War. In the 1960s, Cannon began using hypnotherapy to control her weight and also to help her quit smoking, which you know what? If that works, I'm going to try it. I need to try that shit. She learned hypnosis from her husband, who was an amateur hypnotist. While her husband was stationed at a Navy base in Texas in 1969, a doctor had asked the couple, the Cannons, to help a patient who was struggling with an eating disorder. And under hypnosis, the patient began claiming that they were a flapper in the 1920s in Chicago during a previous life. So, in the following months, they continued to put her under, and they reported that she had 4 past lives and that she detailed all of these past lives. And that's sort of how the Cannons and Dolores got started doing this specific work. However, Dolores Cannon would have to stop hypnotherapy because her husband was injured during a car accident later that year. But in the late 1970s, Cannon returned to hypnotherapy and used it to treat clients. And during this time, she was building a clientele. And after taking on thousands of clients, Dolores began to create her own techniques and theories about reincarnation. She went on to create what is called the quantum healing hypnosis technique. And I believe now people just call it the QHT technique or QHHT, something like that. She said this technique allowed her to communicate with her client's subconscious. So she would act as a conduit between her client's subconscious and, reality. She also claimed that this technique could heal medical conditions. But because of this, other colleagues in her field were very skeptical of her. They sort of criticized and critiqued her because they said that she lacked education and medical training. Like I said, she only went to school until she was 16 years old. And they also said she was misusing the word quantum. So they were just overall skeptical about her being self-taught. Despite this, though, Dolores never gave up on her findings and her work as a hypnotherapist. She's very well respected now. You can find a ton of information on her, and you'll find that a lot of people give her a lot of notoriety and respect. But I mean, while she was sort of pioneering this concept, a lot of people called her a promoter of fringe theories. Now, I didn't know what this meant exactly, so I looked it up. A fringe theory is an idea or a viewpoint that differs significantly from the accepted scholarship of the time within its field. So, what she was believing in was not mainstream and it was more unheard of, and a lot of people react to something different and something unknown, sometimes in a negative way. Like, you know what I mean? That's probably how they were looking at her, like she was maybe crazy or very outlandish. But either way, she still did so much research in her field. And I will touch on the outlandish things that her colleagues might have associated her with here in just a second. In 1985, she became interested in UFOs and extraterrestrial investigations. Now, this is probably what her colleagues didn't want her talking about, because when you talk about aliens or UFO abductions or sightings, a lot of people, just the norm of the collective is like, scary, that's weird, you're weird, you know? But she went on to research this in depth. This would lead her to work with people who claimed to have been abducted by aliens. And through this, she wrote many books on aliens and her findings with these alleged alien abductees. She also wrote pieces for magazines and newspapers, but because people believed that her theories were so far out there or so fringe, it took her 9 years, almost a decade, to get one of her pieces published. But her first book that was published got her the exposure and the engagement that I believe she was looking for, because this book was on Nostradamus and about her communicating with him and being in contact with him. Then she went on to publish 17 books on New Age topics like parallel universes, the Bermuda Triangle, Stonehenge. She also continued to work on past lives and helping clients through their regression sessions. She would go on to speak around the world about her topics of interest, and yeah, she just did her thing. She went on to become very well respected, like I said. Cannon basically became a central figure in the conspiracy theory communities because of her books and presentations about alien contact, which that is the trope that scares me the most. Like anything that has to do with being abducted by aliens or alien encounters, that stuff low-key really terrifies me. And when I was a kid, I used to read, my parents let me read fucking Bud Hopkins. And I don't know why, but that's probably why I'm so weird now. But aliens freak me out. Like, have y'all ever watched The Fourth Kind? It's filmed like it's a documentary and like it's true, but it's not true. But it is terrifying, okay? And they have clips in there. They kind of do what Dolores Cannon, did. It's a doctor. She's like a therapist, and she puts her patients under hypnotherapy, and then they claim what happens when they got abducted, and it's fucking terrifying, okay? They show like the people like floating, levitating in their bed, and it's terrifying, okay? If you know, you know. She also did work and reported findings about Atlantis, alternate realities, reincarnation, and I believe she introduced the concept of star seeds. If you've learned about star seeds, I'm not really big into star seeds, to be honest, but a lot of people are. It's basically individuals from other star systems who occupy human bodies on Earth, which I find that very interesting. I just know that some people take the star seed concept and they like run with it, and they make it very extreme. If you know, you know. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. But that was the mini deep dive on Dolores Cannon. She passed away in Fayetteville, Arkansas at Washington Regional Medical Center. She was cremated. She passed away on October 18th, 2014. She was 83 years old, so she lived a very long life. She had children, she had a husband. Despite challenges that she faced, she had a very successful career because she is so well known. And like I said, you can find audiobooks on Spotify, and I'm sure you can go to Amazon or wherever and type in Dolores Cannon and read some of her books for yourself. And there's a lot of information on her. You can look her up. I think she has an official YouTube, even though she has passed. But I'm pretty sure she has a YouTube and she has a TikTok, because when I was researching her, those things would pop up. There's a lot of media on her. So yeah, that is the mini deep dive on Dolores Cannon, and I really enjoyed learning about her while I was researching her. I hope you guys liked this video, and thank you for watching. Have a wonderful rest of the week, my friends. Bye. Serious question. Would you or would you not go see a hypnotherapist?